Hello, this is Camille Fairborn from Michigan State University, and I'd like to welcome you to today's CODS Teaching and Learning webinar. I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Hollylynne Stoll-Lee as our speaker today. She is a full professor of mathematics and statistics education at North Carolina State. For today's webinar, she will give a presentation entitled Preparing Teachers to Teach Statistics with Online Learning Modules. The way the webinars work is that all listeners are muted during the webinar. You can ask questions at any time by typing them into the questions box. We'll be sure to ask those questions towards the end and give Dr. Lee a chance to respond. You can also use the chat box if you're having any technical questions. At this point, I'll turn things over to Dr. Lee. Hollylynne, go ahead.
Okay, well, hello everybody. I'm Hollylynne, and I wore my Hawaiian shirt today because we are all in summer vacation, hopefully. And hopefully that you are, I appreciate you taking out time from hopefully doing something very fun to join us today. I am going to go ahead and turn my webcam off because I've been told that it will make things go a little smoother with the slides and everything. So I'm still here, but I will see you later. Okay, so let me get started. Oops, there we go. All right, so the work that we're doing, as you noticed before, on the title slide, is cross-institutional, and I'll tell you a little bit about my colleagues in a second. But we're really trying to kind of solve a problem that is situated in the fact that we have higher expectations for stats content in secondary schools. I have no doubt that I don't need to justify that to this audience. But in higher education, particularly in undergraduate and graduate education, we're seeing much more interest over the last decade for using online learning, and the tools that we have available for online learning have also been changing a lot and increasing the ways you can create interactivity online. Specifically in teacher education, we have seen over the last 15 years or so a much greater emphasis on teachers learning to teach based on the practices of teaching. So really trying to immerse teachers and pre-service teachers in learning opportunities that are very much based in the practices of teaching. And I'll say more about that a little bit later. And we do know from some recent studies that new teachers feel the least prepared to teach statistics, and they demonstrate weak content understanding of statistics. And so we have even our newest teachers kind of coming out who may have had some more statistics courses than though their counterparts from 20 years ago still don't feel very confident to teach statistics. I'm not talking about just AP statistics. I'm talking about statistics from middle school up through the high school level that is kind of woven throughout the entire curriculum. They don't demonstrate understanding of it, and they don't feel confident to teach it. All right. So our project, I'm the PI of this NSF project. We are just finishing year 3. And my co-PIs are Bill Finzer from the Concord Consortium, Stephanie Casey from Eastern Michigan, and Rick Hudson from the University of Southern Indiana. And we also have Jima Majika working with us at NC State as a research associate, as well as a plethora of graduate students that have worked on the project over the last couple of years. So in this project, we really are using a iterative and cyclic process to meet our goals. And our goals are to really create online resources for statistics pre-service teacher education. One of those is to develop CODAP, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second, as an easy to use online tool to support high school statistics. To create classroom videos so that pre-service teachers can learn from teaching episodes and videos that represent students' thinking in statistics specifically. To develop a plethora of rich multivariate data tasks that are good for pre-service teachers to learn with and also would be useful for their own teaching in the future. And to have video interviews. So those are some of the kinds of resources that we have. And then we take all of these resources and we package them into modules for learning that can be used in a variety of different courses, and I'll talk more about the kinds of courses a little bit later. And then our third goal is to disseminate all of this and to implement them into undergraduate math teacher ed programs. So we take a modular approach because we know that teacher education is done differently at every institution across the US. There is no standard teacher ed curriculum. Different universities have different number of courses that math teacher education students take. They have different amount of statistics courses that they may require or they may have as optional. So we tried to do things in a modular approach that really suggests an organization, but also allows faculty to have that freedom to choose what to do. So we have the foundation module that is basically our attempt to say, if you don't have time to do anything else, please do this. And it presents the core ideas about teaching statistics that we think that even if you only have maybe one course in your institution that you get to see your students, if you spend approximately 2 weeks using this foundation module, it gives the pre-service teachers a nice start to thinking about how to teach when they go out into the classroom. And then we have 2 modules that are specifically around statistical topics. The association module that covers both categorical association and quantitative association, and inferential reasoning. So those 2 modules could be done in either order after the foundation module. And then in blue, you see that we have 2 different kind of like larger assignments. So the modules definitely have some assignments in them, but we have these 2 assignments that live outside modules that can be used along with any of the different modules. So let me tell you a little bit about our design features. When we're developing our content, we are framing our content based on the GACE standards, both at the collegiate level and the K-12 level, and research on students' learning. Our team really has a lot of experience in understanding how middle school and high school students work with statistical ideas, particularly with technology. We are very much committed to using free and accessible tools for data investigation. That's why we're using CODAP. And being able to have investigations of engaging with real larger and messier data sets than most of our pre-service teachers probably have had experience with, and that we need more of in our secondary schools. And with our content, we want to, as I said before, have a strong connection to classroom practice through things like videos, tasks, and frameworks that can be helpful. And so that's a little bit about our content, and I'll go into more detail about those things. But our delivery, we really are committed for all modules to have the same organization and structure, so that there is some anticipated structure. When you go into an ESTEEM module, you kind of know what to expect, although faculty have the ability to change that structure if they want. We want to simplify access to our materials and the delivery of them. And we also really want to prompt meaningful interactions through discussions in our modules. So I don't think I have to spend a lot of time on this, but 2 ideas coming from GACE that are very foundational in our work is introducing the pre-service teachers to the statistical investigation cycle, understanding why it's a cycle, why it's important, how larger data sets can support investigations, and how you can teach using this cycle as an anchor. And there we have, for example, several videos of teachers referring to this cycle explicitly in their instruction, so that pre-service teachers can kind of imagine how they might do such a thing in their own classroom. We also took a look at the GACE standards and really thought about how we could make this. So it's in a short module, it's really hard to actually hand them the GACE document. I'm thinking about the GACE 2007 document and ask them to read it. There's a lot there. So we tried to create a framework, a GACE-like framework, where we updated things from the GACE and represented it in a diagram and in a very short text, so that that the students can get familiar with this idea in a very short amount of time, with a multimedia video that explains kind of each of the levels of understanding and examples of what students might do with these things, with conversations with expert stats educators that explain what students might do at the different levels and statistical habits of mind. So there's lots of different multimedia to help the pre-service teacher get a handle on this without having to read a static document. So with CODAP, that is our primary tool. And just as a quick show of hands, if you look over in your attendees, the participant box, I believe that there should be a place to raise your hands. Raise your hand if you have heard of CODAP. And Camille, maybe you can help me get a count for how many people have actually heard of CODAP before.
I can do that. I'm still waiting for people to raise hands. Looks like we have about 6 out of 28.
Okay. So if you've ever used Fathom or Tinkerplots in the past, CODAP is being developed by the same developer. So Fathom was developed by Bill Finzer and Key Curriculum Press. And Tinkerplots was built off of the Fathom engine. And CODAP is really kind of an online version of this. It is not exactly the same, and it doesn't do exactly the same amount. And one of the really cool things about the approach that the CODAP team is taking in developing the software is that they're partnering with lots of other projects that need statistical features built into CODAP. And we all kind of benefit from these partnerships. So as you saw, Bill Finzer is a co-PI on this project, and we have, over the last 3 years, implemented lots of new features in CODAP based on our understandings and based on research of what high school and middle school students could really use to make CODAP a usable tool in the classroom to meet the standards. And so this is our tool of choice, again, because it's free and it's online, requires no downloads. So that is just a brief introduction to that. Here's another example of a categorical graph. It has some of the same kind of data visualization capabilities that you might expect in other software. Things are dynamically linked. And it also permits investigation of hierarchically structured data. So everything doesn't have to be seen just in a flat table. So what I have here, and because of time, I'm not going to actually get a chance to engage you with any of these data sets. But if you later download the slides, I have the URLs where you can actually follow and go into the data sets yourself and play around with CODAP. But you can see that we have a hierarchical structure in our data, that we have the older, this is a data set of roller coasters. We have roller coasters that are in an age group called older, recent, and newest. And if this was live and I clicked on, for example, the recent roller coasters, then all of those recent roller coasters would be highlighted in the table. They would also be highlighted in any graph that would happen to be open. What you see here is that there is a single data point in the recent category that is highlighted, Superman, a roller coaster called Superman, that is highlighted in the table and in the graph. We also spent a lot of time figuring out how to build a sampler within CODAP. And in our modules, we have 2 different types of activities with samplers. One where you have a hidden probability distribution underneath the sampler that is unknown to the user, and they have to collect samples to see if they can predict what that underlying distribution is. So that's one type of use of our sampler. And another type is being able to sample from a collection of data. So in this particular example, we got data from the federal government website, the EPA website, of all the different vehicles that were manufactured in 2018. And we cleaned the data set a little bit because it had a ton of variables in it. And then pulled it into CODAP, and then we're able to actually sample from that data set. And there's something like I'm going to estimate about 1,300 vehicles in that data set. And so here in this particular screenshot, I collected 10 samples of size 50, and I have them, I have each of the samples graphed over here as dot plots. I have one particular sample highlighted, and it's highlighted also over in the table. And I computed the mean for each of these samples. And then I graphed the mean. So this is coming from one of our tasks that is building up this idea of a sampling distribution from an empirical approach. All right, I'm having trouble with my PowerPoints going forward. So the connections to classroom practice through videos, I just have a couple snapshots here. We have expert panel discussions where I sat around with several well-known statistics educators, and we had conversations about different issues in statistics. And we sat down and actually videotaped for about 3 hours, and then we were able to chop these up to highlight different points. And so these videos are used throughout. We have teacher interviews where sometimes I was just sitting down with 1 or 2 teachers. You can see an example here where I was talking with Stephen Miller and Doug Tyson, and they were explaining some of the things that they do when they're teaching statistics. We have classroom videos where we either have it's live, where we actually had permission from the county to share these videos, or we captured video and then we turned them into animations because we did not have the research permissions to actually show the students' faces and the teacher's face. And so we created animations based on the work that we saw in the classroom. Over here, we actually do some picture-in-picture where you can see students talking and working while they're using CODAP. And then we also have some expository videos where it's either myself or another member of our team in a short video kind of explaining a key concept. So because of time, I'm actually not going to show you a video, but if you go back later to look at the slides, you can watch. This is actually not one of a complete video, it's just like a 2-minute clip. But in this video, this is the first time these students have ever looked at bivariate data and in a graphical form. And it's a nice example of how they use particular data points. You can see that the student has 1 point selected that they chose to select because they were curious about it. And the reasoning about that one case helped them make sense of what a scatter plot actually represented. And then you see later on in the video where I ask a couple questions and have them do something with the technology and how that actually pushes them even further into thinking a little bit more deeply about the statistics. So in our materials, each module, so remember we have 3 modules. And each module has 2 parts. There's part 1 of the foundation, part 2 of the foundation, part 1 of association, part 2 of association, and part 1 of inferential reasoning, and part 2. That way, these are each approximately a week's worth of material, but of course, it might depend on how you structure your course and the way you fit it in. And each part has 3 different sections. There's a read and watch, and we have essential materials that are readings and videos. We have learn from practice that include the videos with teachers and students. Then we have a section that is engaging with data, and this is where our active CODAP tasks are located. And then we have different reflections or videos or discussions that are focused on pedagogical aspects of the investigation, so that their pre-service teachers are not only thinking about the doing of statistics with CODAP, but also what that might imply for the teaching of statistics and what that might look like with their own students in the future. And then there's always a synthesize and apply. For example, a synthesize and apply might be looking at a set of tasks and deciding in what ways that they provide good opportunities to promote statistical habits of mind, or taking a look at a video of students' work and analyzing whether or not the students were at level 1, level A, B, or C in the framework. So in organization, just to kind of show you a little bit further, this is how it would look in a learning management system. And I'm going to show you that in a little bit more. We're also really committed to making these accessible and the delivery of them easy. So after we're done building them, we package them and oftentimes are rebuilding some of them in Moodle, Blackboard, Canvas, and Desire to Learn D2L, so that a faculty member can just export these and then import them on their own course website, their own LMS at their institution. So with wanting to promote discussion boards and really good discussions, I just wanted to share one of the discussion prompts that we have that asks them to kind of compare their experience in the module with their own prior learning experiences. And as you can see, this is an expert of something that happened in one of our courses at one of our institutions, one of our field test institutions. And a pre-service teacher is really talking about, that watching these videos from the professors and the classroom teachers really gave me more confidence to apply it myself, so direct evidence that those videos were being impactful for them. And that the fun and exciting part comes from students being able to interpret the data and ask questions. And then another pre-service teacher kind of replies, talking about technology as a crucial component in interacting with CODAP and Tuva, which is another online free tool. Was an awesome experience. I had no idea the manipulating and visualizing data could be so easy. Having these apps in my arsenal increased my confidence. And so these pre-service teachers are getting excited, and they're starting to be able to imagine doing these things in their own future classrooms. So, and I'm going to take you to the ESTEEM project page so that you can just see how to actually register if you would like access to our materials. And again, our materials are free. So if I follow this link, this is our project website. And if I scroll down here, I can follow this link to get access to the ESTEEM module. And for me, it's taking me right in here. But if you are not currently registered, you would have to go through a registration process. And once you fill out the registration form, then you have, you can always come back to this link and you will have free access to this. So in what we do is that on the left-hand side, we have our different modules. And right now I have them closed and I'll open them up in a second. But you can scroll through and see that we have these different modules. And then down at the bottom, we have the task design and screencast assignment. And over here on the right is where you can actually download the materials in Moodle format, Blackboard format, etc. And then we have a guide to help you know how to export and import into your own course. Our users from our field test tell us that this is generally pretty easy. So I'm just going to open up, for example, the very first part 1 of the foundation module so that you can see how the materials are laid out. What are some of the instructors that use our materials do is that once they import the materials into their course, they come back and look at how we have it set up just to make sure that everything got imported correctly and that it is formatted the way that it needs to be. All of our materials are have a common also use a common cartridge, so that if you use a different LMS, you should be able to download this and import it into another LMS system. We're not promising that's going to be pretty, which is why we have it laid out here on this page so that people can kind of come back here and see how things are laid out. So let me go back here. We are in the middle of doing revisions based on our field tests. So we are, the month of July is incredibly busy for the ESTEEM team. And we're going to be having all of the updates and the new exports to the different LMS systems ready by August 5th for fall course planning. So I highly encourage you to register and go in and look around, but please don't download any of the materials until after August 5th, and I will be sending out an announcement when they are ready so that you have the latest and greatest of the revisions. So let me tell you a little bit about what we've done so far and what people have thought about our materials. So we've done 3 one-day workshops in 2018 and 2019 with 38 different faculty members. We had a few faculty members that attended more than one workshop. So 38 is the unique number of faculty members. And we did these workshops at the day before the Association of Mathematics Teacher Educators Conference and before USCOTS. And we were reporting here on the implementations that were done in spring, summer, fall of 2018, as well as spring 2019. We had 22 faculty that implemented modules in 26 different courses. Now, our materials are designed for middle and secondary teachers, but we do have a few users that have used some of our materials with elementary pre-service teachers, with oftentimes kind of only using a select few of the materials and maybe adapting them a little bit. The class sizes range from 5 to 32, so they're generally pretty small. And the courses that have been so far are a content course for teachers, a math methods course for teachers, or a special course on teaching math with technology. We've had several faculty members at, I think, about 5 or 6 institutions that have a course like that have used the materials there, including at NC State. So most use our modules completely in an online course with a combination of asynchronous and synchronous instructional delivery. And some of them combine online with a face-to-face. So they do some of the components online and some of them in live face-to-face courses. And we have a few instructors that have so far used the materials completely in a face-to-face setting, where there has been no online components. And so based on feedback from our users, if you are doing it, so our materials are designed to be in an online setting. So the EM in our ESTEEM grant stands for E modules, electronic modules. So we are primarily designing for online, but we try to consider how one might adapt those for face-to-face or hybrid. We've had people successfully do that. So you can use the read and watch materials as homework before class discussions. You might have them watch and discuss shorter videos together in class, particularly videos that are of classrooms. I think they tend to enjoy watching those kinds of videos together. We've also had several faculty members that are in a face-to-face setting introduce and engage their pre-service teachers with the technology tools, particularly CODAP, in pairs during class. And so they're doing these tasks and investigations live during class with instructor support. And if you're not doing things in an online classroom, you can take our discussion board prompts and turn those into live classroom discussions and use the prompts to help you think about how you might organize and what you might want out of a classroom discussion. So some of our major findings, and this is way top level information, is that faculty do choose parts of modules to use based on their particular students' backgrounds, the focus of the course that they're teaching, and the time. Time is an issue that we all struggle with, and it comes up in our evaluation a lot of, okay, I have to make decisions because of the time and of all the other things that I have to cover in my course. So we're no different than secondary teachers who often put teaching statistics off to the end of the year. We find that faculty members that are teaching particularly math methods courses tend to do the same thing. They want to spend their time teaching their pre-service teachers about algebra and teaching geometry and teaching calculus ideas, and they save the statistics stuff for the end, and by that time it's squished and they can't fit everything in. The faculty that implement do also supplement when needed, sometimes to provide additional content background if their students haven't had a statistics course before taking the course that they're using the ESTEEM materials in. And we find that often those that are supplementing the materials are faculty members that have had previous experience in stats ed. So, you know, they're folks that come to us COTS regularly, and they're folks that have kind of access to a plethora of good ideas in teaching statistics, and they have some of their favorite tasks, and they have some of their favorite videos or favorite readings that they use, and so they're able to combine those with our materials. The faculty do find the videos, all different kinds of videos that we have, very helpful, and particularly love using CODAP, and that they find that their teachers, their pre-service teachers, get very excited using it. And they really value the ease of integration into their own LMS. I mean, we're pre-doing a lot of their course planning for those couple weeks. Excuse me. Now, from the pre-service teacher's perspective, some of the things we've learned based on surveys and interviews and analyzing some of the documents that they submit is that there's an increased confidence to teach statistics. We've been using the SETS document, the Self-Efficacy to Teach Statistics survey. And so we see a high increase in confidence, but we also see increase in confidence not just from that survey, but for example, in the discussion board example that I showed you, where they bring up themselves that they feel more confident to teach statistics now. And they're starting to change their perspective on teaching statistics as seeing it as different than mathematics, which is one of our major goals. And they very much see CODAP as a valuable tool for their future teaching. And they also express value for the videos, particularly of those showing the classrooms and hearing from teacher interviews. There's a few, I mean, there have been a few pre-service teachers that have said that or maybe it was from, I think it was one or two faculty members, excuse me, that said that they weren't quite sure that their pre-service teachers really appreciated the interviews with the experts because they didn't really know who these experts were. And so maybe they didn't value or kind of understand the context of what these people had to bring to the table for their own learning. So this is just an example from a pre-service teacher interview that the comfort level, they said that their comfort level on a scale from 0 to 10 was somewhere around a 5. But they were not comfortable with statistics. And they would say that I'm probably at a good 8 right now, and that their biggest lesson was not to be afraid of data, and that the biggest block with statistics as a math person is that so much of it actually is not meant to be calculated by hand. So here we see, we think, a success story of someone who really considered themselves a math person and is starting to see and value statistics in a different way than perhaps they would have if they had not seen our materials and maybe gone out and taught statistics in a very mathematical way. I'm gonna skip this because of time and just go right into questions. So I posed a few questions if there are not some from the audience that we can discuss. But let me pause here and let Camille let me know if there have been any questions.
Well, we don't have any questions yet. Joe Joyner did express some thanks to Bill Finzer for developing Fathom, and I think we can all applaud that comment. So those of you who are attending, if you have some questions for Hollylynne, go ahead and type them into the questions box and I will ask them to her. I had a question for you, and I guess maybe this just reflects my own expectation of what the webinar was based on, you know, we talked earlier before the webinar started about your work with the MOOC. So you really developed this for college teachers of pre-service math teachers.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I guess my question for you is how much, I guess, value, and value is going to be the wrong word, do you see for this being used for, say, graduate teaching assistant training, or even just in-service teachers or in-service college professors who want to get some additional ideas? How much of this is accessible for that? How much would you recommend people do? What's your view for it or vision for it?
Okay, so let me first start with the easy question. So you had a lot of questions.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. So first of all, to clarify, that Camille is correct that the primary audience is faculty who at colleges and universities who teach courses for future teachers. Right. But it could also be practicing teachers that are coming back in a graduate program. So that's the easy question. It can be, these materials could also be used for practicing teachers. So if you're doing professional developments, so if, for example, I could imagine that there is a state that's trying to do a large effort to increase the teachers in their state's understanding to teach statistics, and they could take these online modules and perhaps use them to supplement some face-to-face professional development that they're doing at a larger scale in their state. So these materials could absolutely be used in that way. Could they be used for training graduate TAs? Yes, because particularly if those graduate TAs are I'm assuming most graduate TAs are going to be teaching your intro level statistics course, which is the same content as high school statistics. So in that sense, these materials could be used for that, particularly if they don't have a teacher ed background, because it would be introducing to them to some ideas that are very pedagogically oriented. Our materials are not set up to teach statistical content straightforward. We are always getting at the statistical content through diving deeper into pedagogical issues.
Okay. So thank you for that. We have some questions from the audience now. Can you remind us how we access this material again?
Yes. So I'm going to go backwards. So first of all, the slides should be up on the cause website very soon, and I think they try to post them the same day as this. And so once you get access to my slides, then you can also have access to the link. I also believe, if I correct me if I'm wrong, Lori and Camille, that I do think that even the abstract, I had a link to the ESTEEM project. So it should be in the abstract of the talk as well.
Well, we can make sure that gets added in, and if it's not. Okay, Joanna Scott wants to know the answer to the third question on the slide you had up there.
Okay, hold on. Well, that was my question to pose to you all. This was a question for us to discuss. Is, after hearing about these ESTEEM materials, does anybody have any ideas of how these materials could be used with GACE-inspired materials for intro stats courses? I don't have the answer to that. I do have an idea, but I would like to hear from others first.
Okay, we'll see if anybody chimes in with that. While we're waiting, Neil Hadfield wants to know what would be the required and or recommended prerequisites for pre-service teachers to take a course based on the ESTEEM materials?
I would recommend that they had an intro statistics course before they've had our materials, but that's it.
All right.
So equivalent, honestly, it's equivalent to they've gone through high school with what they should be doing in statistics, but we also know that that doesn't always happen. So having taken an intro stats class at the collegiate level should be sufficient.
Okay. Did Malaya says, can ESTEEM be used to orient or introduce the collaborative researchers from other disciplines such as medicine?
Depends on what you want to introduce them to. I'm not sure I'm understanding the purpose of that use. I think I would need to understand that purpose a little bit more.
So perhaps if they were, it's not like you said, it's not going to teach them statistical concepts. This would be if you had faculty, say in psychology or biomedicine or something like that, that wanted to teach statistics concepts, they could use that to inform their teaching, but not necessarily to learn about statistics. Is that?
Yeah, I would say so. But then again, I mean, with thinking about other disciplines, the kinds of data sets that we purposely use aren't targeted towards specific disciplines. And so like I would imagine, well, so let me just say from some of you may or may not know that for several years I taught several MOOCs for teaching statistics through data investigations. And one of the surprise things to me is that I did have faculty members who were from sociology, faculty members who were pure statistician researchers, faculty members who were, I'm trying to think a couple of the other departments that they came from, educational psychology, psychology, and that maybe taught like your general education research methods course, like that Quant 1 course for education. And they took the MOOC because they thought, hey, I might be able to learn something about, teaching in my context. And they, at least in what they reported through surveys and discussion boards, that they got a lot out of it. So if I use that as analogous to these materials, then they could be useful, particularly if they're framed. You might have to do some framing of them for that particular audience.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have. And, oh, I did have one more. I'm assuming based on the fact that this is all available and online that you're okay if, because I'm always trying to scrounge data sets and use other people's things. These are things that we could potentially download for our own intro stat classes and use these data sets and this kind of information. I'm assuming you're okay with that, but I guess I wanted to check.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, all of our materials are out there for free, and what we will, want to be doing, will probably in the next year or so, be sending surveys to people who are registered at our site to just ask, how are you using our materials? Like, what have you found here that's useful? And so we would just, ask that you report back to us how you might have picked and pulled to use things for your own purposes.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, and thank you for this webinar. We've appreciated having you here, and all of you who've attended, we've appreciated having you here as well. Keep your eyes on the COS website for upcoming webinars over the next several months. I think we still have a full slate of interesting people to come tell us about the interesting things that we're doing. Thanks again, and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.